Hello. Now, I hope that I wasn't the only one that thoroughly enjoyed that intro music. That was amazing. I was just there jamming away. But thanks all for joining the Overdose and Chill Live Friday session. We're at episode 142, I've been told, which is a really decent number. So this is a very, very special episode. We're joined, my name is Hannah Udina, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the partnerships lead at Shopify Plus for ANZ. And I am very excited to be joined by Tom Melenhorst from Remedy Drinks. Tom, I'm going to throw it over to you to let you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you've been doing, a little bit about Remedy Drinks.
Thanks, Hannah. Very good surname pronunciation there. Most people muck that one up, but well done.
I was practicing.
Good, well done, bravo. I have been at Remedy for 4.5 years now. I'm digital marketing and e-commerce manager at Remedy. So Remedy's quite a young company, only 11 years old, so somewhat of a veteran in Remedy land. I've been working in e-commerce for roughly 9 years now, so have been around the traps a little bit. Previously in AFL land, so I worked at Melbourne Footy Club, did some consultant sort of agency work for the AFL, and then 2.5 years at Adidas, and then onto Remedy. And I have been here ever since.
Wow, so we're going to have to pick your brains today about not just all things Remedy, but also all things e-commerce, because you know your shit. So I'm excited to jump in, because I also know that Remedy's had a bit of a journey over the last couple of years. You've been doing a lot in terms of your e-commerce strategy, your online presence. So we will dive into that in a minute. But first question that I've been dying to ask, I think it's the most important question of the day. What is your favorite kombucha flavor from Remedy Drinks?
Good question. Probably at the moment, it's the pink grapefruit limited batch. So Remedy do limited editions for 6 months, and the pink grapefruit one that's currently on rotation is a banger. It is so good, so good.
Right.
But I will say that my favorite Remedy drink is not actually a kombucha. It's a switchel, the blood orange switchel. If you see it on shelf in any retailer, grab it, or buy one online, of course. Just such a great drink. Good for summer if you like ginger, that fiery flavor. Definitely my favorite, blood orange switchel.
Well, we're going to have to go into your range in a little bit. We won't start with that. I'm more of a ginger lemon gal myself. Love it.
Yes.
Always have, right from basically when you first launched. I was ginger and lemon right from the word go. But I will be trying that pink grapefruit. So that's a hot tip for everyone listening. Make sure that you go and grab yourself a pink grapefruit kombucha. Anyway, let's start by just diving into the Remedy story, because as you mentioned, the actual brand, although it has been around for some time, has probably evolved over the years. And I think it'd be good to set this scene and the conversation up with bit more around Remedy, the growth story, the journey over time to where you're at now.
Yeah, so Remedy, as I mentioned, started 11 years ago in Melbourne, Bayside, Melbourne. It was a couple named Sarah and Emmett Condon who founded the business 11 years ago. On their kitchen bench, they were sort of looking for healthier alternatives for their kids to drink, and stumbled across kombucha, which is how they started brewing the kombucha right here in Melbourne on their kitchen bench. And that sort of evolved from there. So kombucha was the origins of the business. So we started finding our way into smaller retailers around Melbourne. And over time, over years, things just sort of expanded. People started trying it, drinking it, liking it. And we found ourselves going from, cafes and fresh food stores and stuff like that into independent grocery and restaurants and, I guess, corporate grocery as well, so Coles and Woolies, Ritchies, etc., and then obviously online. So the business has been on a real journey, and I guess over that time we've had a lot of different drinks come into the fold. So kombucha is obviously what we are known for. We originally started as Remedy Kombucha. The logo looked a little bit different back then, but over time we've sort of branched that out into more disruptive drinks within the whole drinks category rather than just staying with kombucha. So over the last few years, we've launched some shots, some small shots as well. Sodally, which is our soft drink, which is also delicious. and then an energy drink called Kick, which is relatively new in the market, but taking on some of the bigger drink brands. So that's sort of the journey that Remedy's been on from a drinks perspective, but it was really quick growth for a business, I think, within a small space of time. Yeah, obviously quite big now and doing wonderful things in the space, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, I think the drinks category is such an interesting space to be in, especially with where you've started from and really being known about your kombucha range and expanding those lines from Sodally soft drink to Kick, which is energy drink. So we'll probably get into some of the particulars around that category range growth as well as channel growth, because I'm sure that they probably are interchangeable in terms of the success that you're seeing.
Yeah.
But I want to first touch on a bit about your e-commerce growth, because ultimately, especially in the category you're in, it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily make the connection with growth online, and you have gone through a recent transformation around your e-commerce presence. You've recently migrated. What was the motivation behind migrating your e-commerce platform? What were the key factors, I guess, that led to that decision? And I'd love for you to take us through a bit about that particular aspect of your growth journey.
Yeah, so I guess they're probably two separate questions. The growth journey and why we decided to move are probably separate. So the growth journey, I guess, you're right, it is unusual for a brand like ours to trade quite well online. But what we know about the consumers that shop online with us is they're drinking multiple cans of kombucha or other drinks in their household every day. So they might have 3 or 4 people living there, and if they're all drinking multiple, you can't put that many in your trolley at the local grocery store. So you've got to buy it from somewhere. So that's how we position ourselves, I guess, in the market and who we're going after. But in terms of the migration to Shopify, so it was kind of like an alignment of stars, really. We late last year, so Remedy's a global company now. We trade in a number of markets overseas, but on our previous platform, we had 6 markets that were using the platform. And the international business started moving to do things themselves a little bit more, which included their website. So we had the UK, Canada, the US, which was a big one, and Singapore move away and do their own thing. So I guess when you look at that from a commercial standpoint, you're left with the bill for the whole thing. So we saw it as an opportunity to explore our options. And we also felt that the website needed a refresh anyway. Our brand had evolved quite a lot, but our website hadn't really gone with it in a lot of ways. So we used that as an opportunity to sort of just assess our options, look at what was best for us. And then, as I mentioned before, commercially, it just made sense to move to Shopify, I think, to be honest. We have a very lean team, so being able to do things ourselves as well was quite a big appeal of Shopify. But the decision was relatively easy when it came down to it.
And talk to us about that migration, because I think it's never obviously never an easy decision to make that jump. And, more times than not, it's actually never an easy process as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of brands have gone through, are going through. So let's talk in a little more granularity around that process, how you managed it. What did you love? What went well? What didn't go so well? Because I also think it's great to touch on the challenges, and just let's spend some time having a chat about that.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we had to do was just get buy-in from the business. E-commerce is so cross-functional. There's so many people involved in the whole process that you need to make sure that internally you've got the capability to manage a project like that, because obviously it's quite in depth. And then secondly, you've got the buy-in from the business and people within the business, which we had absolute confidence from everyone in the business that we were making the right decision and we were doing the right thing and it was going to be good for us long term. So I think from the start out, that was the key point for me, was getting buy-in from the people in the business to go ahead and do it, making sure we had the resourcing to come along as well.
Yeah. Any tips on that? Because that is often, I find, like if we're talking about all of the different stages of decision making, that's right at the beginning, but it's almost always the hardest. Buy-in from the business, making sure that you have a really clear pathway to the why,
Yeah.
and speaking the story that the CFO wants to hear, that the CMO wants to hear, like all of these different stakeholders. Any tips that you've got in that aspect?
No, I think it's just about highlighting the benefits, like why, like you're
Yeah.
absolutely right, like highlighting the why and why it's going to benefit so many different people. For us, I guess the process was quite easy for me because there weren't any areas where it was really going to be worse. Like we weren't going to be worse off anywhere really. So from that point of view, it was quite an easy process to go through. But for me, it was, yeah, as you said, just making sure the right people knew the right information about why we were doing it. So, the CFO likes to know that we're going to save money long term and there's commercial benefits and we're going to improve conversion, which is going to help the bottom line, the top line. So I think just bringing them all along on that journey, and all of them will have questions along the way. And I think the senior leaders at Remedy were like, what's the risks with doing this? That was the big thing for us. Like, what are the risks associated with doing this? We don't want a lot of risk in the business at the moment. So you've kind of got to talk them through that around, and also go away and do your due diligence as well. That, I spent a lot of time with Overdose talking about certain things that we wanted to make sure that we're going to be, de-risked by doing this and over-plan certain things. It never, ever, ever always works out that way. But the more you can put into planning beforehand, I think it just means that when it comes to the other end, everything's much easier. So, yeah, just that was the big question from our team, is what was the risk? And to be honest with you, it was good because it set me up to be like, right, we can't have any big stumbles here. There's too much at stake. So, yeah, that was sort of that first process, I guess. And then I guess from a project standpoint, so we gave ourselves lots of time. That's another thing that I would definitely recommend, is when you're trying to crack a whip and it's getting close to a deadline and you've got, potentially another license expiring or something like that, you just have to give yourself enough time to map everything out and make sure it's executed correctly. Because if you're working to deadlines which are unachievable, it puts everyone under pressure and makes everything more difficult. So by allowing ourselves sort of 6 months to do the build, both internally and externally, you don't want to put too much pressure on Overdose or the partners that we're using, and then internally our designers, our content team, our brand team, our fulfillment, dispatch, finance. You've got so many people that you've got to get buy-in from. So we really wanted to take the pressure off as much as we could, which is why we had so much time to do this project.
It's such a important thing that's often overlooked. The number of times, and I'm sure the Overdose team or any team from an agency that's watching right now, where you just have these situations where somebody's like, I need this done in 3 months or 2 months because of XYZ. And you're like, oh, like you can do it and it can be done, but it's not as simple as let's just flick a switch and organize everything internally as well as organize everything with the agency to then have a really smooth, easy migration and transition.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you've called that out, because I often think it's overlooked.
Yeah, and you're trying to get these people on side to come on the journey with you, not only during the project, but after things launch. These things seldom go smoothly, so you've got to have people that are willing to fix the bugs and iron out the creases and all that sort of stuff after the launch. So you've just got to make sure everyone's on the same page as much as possible.
Yeah. So you get sign off, you've signed off the project, you've got enough time. Then how did it go from then?
Yeah, I guess this is the most important bit, really, in my view. You've got to build, and Overdose did a great job of this, not trying to pump their tires up too much, but Overdose did a great job of like planning and mapping out exactly how everything was going to go. And I guess the key element there was the tech team took me through all the options we had with all of the apps that were available for the items that we needed. So subscriptions, fulfillment, payment, everything down to payment gateways. We were always probably going to use Shopify payments, but they give you the options and say, this is what will happen if you use X versus Y, and leave us to make the decision, provide introductions. We would make decisions and then mapping everything out. So it's a bit of a cliche, but it is all in the planning, I think. And for us, that's what it was about. The blueprint was really clear, very in-depth, lots of reading for me to sign it off. So I think that was the key to the whole project, just having a really robust plan around how we were going to execute everything. We had some hiccups along the way, definitely, where things
Mm-hmm.
didn't go as we expected, or we had to look for other options for certain things. But again, it goes back to giving ourselves enough time to be flexible with changes that were taking place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can,
Yeah, scope of work, blueprint, sign off you go. That's probably the most important part of the project, I think.
yeah. And so we're talking about hiccups. Did you want to touch on anything that kind of stands out as, and again, there's always hiccups in every project, but if somebody who is looking at this that is potentially going to go through a migration process, just know there will always be hiccups and there will always be challenges. What were a few of the challenges and consequential learnings that
Yeah.
you experienced through this journey?
The biggest challenge during the project was our fulfillment provider. And it's not because any of them were bad or anything like that. It was that we have very specific requirements for fulfillment. So we ship glass and non-glass products. We ship different sizes, individual label per pack, all that sort of stuff. So we had very specific requirements. And part of that was for me to own for not being clear enough to the original partner that we had chosen around what our requirements were, because we got to UAT and it was, oh shit, we can't do that. And then you're almost back to square one. You almost have to start again.
Yeah.
So that was a massive challenge. So I guess a learning for me there would just be really clear on what requirements were in that instance. I thought it was clear enough, but it definitely wasn't looking back in hindsight. We had a full list and it was all in the blueprint, but looking back, I should have probably broken things down even more granular, because we got to testing and it was, well, that's not doable. We managed to work out workarounds. So we got some workarounds in place and were able to push ahead with that fulfillment provider. But it took a lot of back and forward, some extra work that we otherwise didn't foresee. But you can always find ways to do things. That's what I do love about Shopify is we've always, since we've been on the platform all of 2 months, we've always been able to find solutions for issues that we've had, both during the project and post, and they've been relatively easy and cost effective.
Yeah, it's a common misconception around the flexibility of our platform, and it's something that I love to debate, because if you look at the actual core fundamentals of Shopify, we offer a lot natively, but we actually, through the ecosystem and through the ability to build apps or build functions now, we do offer that ability to be flexible and to customize based on what you need. Because I often hear the platform isn't flexible. I'm like, it actually is. It really is. But it's just, you've got to work with the right partner, the right agency such as Overdose, to be able to go and really understand your business problems, your needs, and then solve back to them. But I do want to
just on that point,
Yeah.
sorry, just to backpedal to where we're talking about sign off from the business. I think that is another critical thing to do, is to make sure you have the right partner on board in terms of the build. If you don't have someone that you have confidence that's going to deliver a result for you, the desired result you're after, then it's just going to go to water really quickly. So things will get missed, timelines will be missed, things will be not considered in the scope, but you have to make sure your partner is thorough and well planned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in partnership, so I can speak to that or for days. But often we see that, you have to have, as a brand, you have to have the right requirements, and the more in depth and the more that you can understand your vertical and the nuances to your vertical, the more you can have really, really in detail requirements that then go and help you build a scope of work. That means that you're not missing anything. Actually, we've got a question from Laura that's popped up. I'd be keen to understand the post-live support experience, both from an internal perspective and an agency service provision perspective.
I'm assuming she means Overdose.
Yes,
I'm assuming. Look, it was great. We obviously, the retainer was obviously there for a long time. I think we lent on Overdose quite a lot. As I mentioned off the top, we are a lean team. So we lent on Overdose quite a lot during the post go live period. Everything wasn't perfect when we pulled the trigger. So we went in with an understanding that there were some things that we would need to tidy up as we go. They were not blockers or critical, and you have that go, no-go call in the morning and make the decision very nervously. But I think as long as you're both on the same page around what the post-go live tasks that need to be completed are, what the time needs to look like, how critical they are, even going down to like, we would rank in order what, obviously you just have different levels, but would rank in order what the nature of the issues were and how critical they were to get fixed and in what time. So the post-go live support was excellent. And since then, I think something that I've found very useful is the Shopify support themselves are quite, sometimes we don't even need to lean on Overdose because Shopify support is so helpful themselves. We had to send an email to all our consumers to let them know that we've moved to a new platform and they needed to update their password. Shopify support helped facilitate that whole process for us. So we were able to implement an app. They explained that it could only be used for 48 hours for whatever reason. We made sure the email got out, everyone got what they needed, and then the app was removed by Shopify. So that sort of stuff is very, very helpful. It means we don't have to lean on Overdose for absolutely everything, but Shopify support are able to assist in that sense as well.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to like, we've got an amazing partnership with Overdose and in terms of the channels for making sure that you as a brand gets exactly what you need and has the best experience. Like, I think we do it pretty well. I think we can both give ourselves a pat on the back.
Definitely.
Because, these types of stories are awesome, right? Let's just pivot back to the process, the build, the migration. You spoke about fulfillment challenges, which quite frankly is common. Like, it's not just your brand. Often we find that there are intricacies and nuances with fulfillment that are often overlooked. But you also had subscriptions as part of your launch. And I know that, for any brand that's wanting to be a subscription company, to build a subscription solution, I think people often go, oh, it's easy, like it's a click of the button. It's not. There is so many different factors and things that you have to understand when it comes to subscriptions and making sure that you set it up properly. Let's talk about that, because I think that it's such a smart business strategy in terms of creating channels of growth, creating new revenue channels. But honestly, I just want to hear about your experience with that, your journey, and kind of where you see that heading to 3, 5, 10 years down the track.
Yeah, so I spoke before about risk being one of the points that our senior team was asking us about, and this was the big risk that I called out. We have approximately 30 to 35% of our monthly revenue goes through subscriptions, so it's quite a large chunk of our volume. So we had to make sure that this was done as effectively as possible. I never had any doubts about the end product. My concern was always around the migration of the existing subscriptions over onto the new platform. The complexity here was we were moving from one payment service provider to another. So we were moving from Braintree to Shopify payments. And this was probably the biggest sticking point for us. We had a few issues with payment tokens and stuff like that, not affecting all consumers, just some consumers. It took about, I think it was 5 days after launch to get the subscriptions over to Shopify completely. But for us, it was about communication with our consumers. We tried to over communicate what was going on, how we were moving to a new website. They could see it themselves, obviously, that we needed them to reset their password, their subscription. We would let them know when it was in their account, or just trying to over communicate rather than under communicate. And then because we were expecting it all to happen within 24 hours, but it took 5 days, we decided that it was, I guess, best to sort of reward them with something. So we sent them all a free case of Remedy Raspberry Lemonade just to say thank you, but recognizing that things didn't go as we had hoped from a consumer-facing standpoint, by acknowledging that ourselves and including that in the comms. So what if I had to do something differently? I would probably, again, just be over-planned with every single fine detail that goes into it. So I was very much trustworthy of everyone external. That's external to Overdose, but I would probably have looked into things a little bit deeper than what I did at the time, knowing how important they were to the business. But all's well that ends well, and everything is going well now. We have a much better consumer experience in my account pages. It's easier to check out with subscriptions, all that sort of stuff. So I am happy with the end result, but certainly during the migration, when you're migrating hundreds and hundreds of subscriptions over, you have to be really, really careful with making sure that the detail is all correct.
Yeah. And look, subscriptions is one part, but it sounds as though you went in depth for a lot of different aspects of your business. So as long as the end result is exactly what you're wanting, that's the main thing.
For sure.
In terms of just like following on from that, was there any key changes in user experience or key functionality as a result of the migration that you think are standouts?
The biggest change for me is just the aesthetics of the website. So
It looks
as
great.
I mentioned, yeah, it's come up really well. Everyone is really happy with how it's come up, and it's a credit to the design team at Overdose, who we submitted a pretty. It wasn't really detailed. We didn't have a huge amount of information in there, but we were really clear that we wanted more color. And Remedy has such great imagery, lifestyle images, cocktail images, information, that we were like, we have an opportunity here to bring those to the fore. So a lot of work was done by our design team, our creative director and our content manager, Ali and Kate, to bring together all of those assets and make sure that they were, going to be represented correctly. Overdose came back with a fantastic mock-up of what the site was going to look like. They gave us a number of different pages to look through and approve, all the way down to like just really small things like the imagery all has like an organic edge now, which is just adds a nice little effect to it. All the lifestyle images have that on the PDPs now. There's small icons that are really informative and impactful, but they were never there before. So I think adding all of those little elements has been just a massive change for us. And then also the use of color. So the guys have integrated a lot of pastel colors to the site now, which are really good for secondary colors on the site. We had a very black and white site previously. There was nowhere near as much color as what there is now, but they really pushed the boat out with the design. And I think that's the piece that I'm most pleased with. And then the other thing is all of the information that is now available to our consumers that wasn't as easily accessible previously. So our PDPs, if you navigate to our PDPs now, we have all nutritional information on there. We get a lot of FAQs as well to our customer service team. So trying to reduce those by including FAQs, i.e. can I drink kombucha when I'm pregnant? Is there alcohol in kombucha? Is there caffeine in kombucha? Including all those questions on the PDP where people are shopping for our product. And then as well, last minute Overdose were able to add in an ingredients page as well, which we were very thankful for. Our ingredients is what makes our drinks so good. And they just had a fantastic crack at an ingredients page, which is now live on our website, which we get a lot of questions about what goes into our drinks. And this page is really informative and helpful for consumers that are looking for that information. Because you said off the top, our business is mostly, 97% of our business is not done online through this channel. So all of our customers, consumers, retailers, a man owns a cafe in a small town and wants to see what goes into Remedy, they can now find that information as easily as possible.
It's a great point around businesses that will traditionally sell in store, right? And the importance of a D2C strategy. In this aspect, it's not necessarily around revenue through the channel. It's more so around making sure that you bring your brand to life through a digital medium, but also creating accessibility to more of your brand profile, whether it be through ingredients or brand story or FAQs, easy medium to ask questions. Would you say that it's more so around connecting to your consumer through an additional channel where you have more ownership and control of that, as opposed to leaving it up to chance if they walk, through a supermarket store and just happen to grab a bottle and then look at the back? Would you say that is probably the main strategy behind your D2C, as opposed to like with revenue growth being almost a secondary objective?
It depends who you ask. I would say, yeah, they're both very important, I think, for us as a business. But yeah, absolutely, you need your site to reflect your brand as much as possible and who you are. And Remedy, we sort of describe ourselves as fun. Don't take ourselves too seriously. A little bit cheeky, I think, is the word that they throw around in the brand meetings. But that's how we sort of see ourselves, and the site needs to be a reflection of that. So if someone needs to learn more about what our product is, we need to give them the answers to the questions they're looking for and the experience that they want when they're engaging with our brand. And I really feel like the site does that now. We did it, it wasn't bad before, but it's just better now. It's just more where we want to be. And anyone that's been through we have a really strong following on social media. So anyone that's been to our Instagram page or anything like that, the site now better reflects and more adequately reflects what you would see there.
Okay, that kind of leads to my next question, because you've obviously got this great digital medium now that you can utilize different channels, whether it be social media, in store, to then go and engage new customers, acquire new customers. And there are any particular strategies that you've now been able to implement to drive growth through that channel?
Through online, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it's just about getting our feet under the desk and getting things rolling as smoothly as possible now. But I think that's what we're doing now. We're in the process of, so I guess we wanted to set ourselves up to not, I spoke about risk before. I don't want to mention it again, but we wanted everything to run smoothly when we first cut over. And then you look to add things on. And that's what I like. I don't want to harp on about this, but that's what I liked about Shopify, was adding things on is relatively easy to do. So now we're looking at things like, can loyalty coexist with what we have online? So how does that work with subscriptions? So we're speaking to different businesses and brands around how we can maybe integrate that to drive, loyalty and return customer rate and all that sort of stuff. So they're all avenues that we're exploring now. Some affiliates work that we're doing because it's much easier to create pages and embed stuff on the website. So there's lots of different things that we can explore now, I guess, and B2B opportunities as well on the site. So lots of different things that we can explore now, but we really wanted to set ourselves up for success and not, make sure we're still getting to where we need to be, BAU wise, I guess. But then now we're really looking to accelerate that. So we're exploring those options now, I would say.
Yeah, no, I love to talk about growth journeys, right? And it's a phased approach. And first phase always has to be making sure that you have the right technology in place to be able to go, and then into phase two, where you can actually start experimenting with what you've got. But if you don't have that foundational technology there to be able to go and enable all of these growth innovation projects, thinking about acquisition of new customer types, loyalty, B2B, all of these great things really are underpinned by the technology that you use. And I often think that that's overlooked, that it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. So it's great to hear that you are thinking about new ways to acquire new customers, to get your brand in the hands of new consumers. So that's very exciting. I'm excited for your next 6 to 12 months, Tom.
Yeah, no, me too. I think we've set ourselves up well now. We're really excited about what the next 12 months has to offer. Definitely acquisition is a key part of that. I think any business that's come out of the pandemic certainly we've been fortunate that we've been growing still, albeit not as quickly as everyone grew in those 2 years where we were stuck at home. But I think that, anyone, like everyone, we're just looking to acquire as many leads as possible and nurture that data as best we can.
Yeah, so we'll talk about data in a minute, but there has been a question coming in from Raven. Do you still have some of your first customers? Great question. How did you get them to stick around through all of the growing pains?
If she means from 4.5 years ago, then I don't know my customers that intimately that I know that they've stuck around or not. But certainly there are people that have had subscriptions with us for multiple years. So we really pushed that during the pandemic. Obviously, people couldn't leave their houses in a lot of major cities. So we made that as available as possible during the pandemic and have sort of nurtured that since then. We like to see them, we call them Remedy lovers. I know that's a little bit boring and lame, but we like to nurture them as much as possible with, if we've got a new SKU coming out. So we launched Shots last year before, and we sent all of our Subscribe as a free case of shots, just to try, just to give them like a surprise and delight. They might like this, they might not like it, they might like one of the shots in the case or whatever it may be, but opening up new avenues for them, making them feel the love from the brand a little bit. So we have had consumers for multiple years that have had subscriptions, which is obviously great to see.
Let's talk about data, because I think it is an important part of any business, especially in this day and age. And you spoke right at the start of this conversation around, you knowing the profile of exactly who likes to drink Remedy and when. How have you gone about building, I guess, a strategy or, a channel strategy, whatever it might be, around those different segments of customer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think this is probably an area that we're looking to develop even further. We've always used .digital over the last, or certainly since I've been with Remedy, and the tools within .digital enable us to do quite heavy segmentation, targeting, all that sort of stuff. We do a lot of retargeting, re-engagement to try and keep customers as engaged and nurtured as possible. But I guess the main thing for us is making sure that we're serving consumers as relevant content as possible. We actually had, this is not great, but we had a lot of issues with bots about 3 years ago, where our database was just hammered by them, and we had to essentially peel back all the layers, delete all the contacts. Our sender reputation was terrible. So we had to almost start from scratch again and build back up. But we're now in a really, really good position with our database where we don't send unless we feel like their content is relevant. We don't abuse their inboxes or anything like that. And as I said before, we're exploring a lot of opportunities at the moment. We're not on the SMS front yet, but it's something that we're looking to do in the future. But yeah, I guess we're really heavy on segmentation. The numbers are pretty good to back it up. Email's a really big revenue driver for us. So I would just encourage everyone to just use those tools as much as possible, because you really want to be as personalized as you can with the content that you're putting in front of your consumers.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, typically we will talk a lot about segmentation, email marketing, SMS in a traditional fashion retailer. But I think that this just highlights that it doesn't matter around the segment that you sit in. Giving relevant, personalized content and updates to your consumer is important, regardless of kind of what vertical you sit in. And I think that's a really key message that I hear it all the time. But if you are watching, know that it's still relevant to your business, even though you may think that you have a product that doesn't necessarily require that level of engagement.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting conversation around SMS that we're having at the moment. Email is really good for us because, as I said before, very visual brand. We have great photography, really good imagery. The guys do a great job with the copy. But how can you can't convey that in an SMS as well. So if we do go down that path, how would we best use it to suit our brand needs? And we probably would use it more sparingly than what some other brands do. But again, that's just one of the things that we're tossing up when we talk about SMS internally, is how exactly would we use it and make it work for our brand.
Yeah. Let's pivot to talk about channel strategy, because I always find this an interesting conversation, especially with brands such as yourselves, around how you differentiate yourself in store when you are sitting right next to, on a shelf, a competitor brand, and it's really hard as a consumer to potentially differentiate. What does that look like for you? Are you utilizing your digital channels to increase your brand awareness that therefore increases, the customer that you reach in store, or like, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We try not to play favorites directly with our retail partners. We like to feel like our brand gives everyone the love rather than calling out a specific outlet or retailer. But we invest a lot in upper funnel media. So we don't necessarily rely at all on the bottom of the funnel media to drive people in store. We do a lot of investment in brand awareness at the top of the funnel across a lot of channels. And that flows right through to our emails. The emails that we send aren't all conversion based. We do a really good job. Well, I think the team does a really good job of segmenting between and separating brand awareness, NPD, whatever it may be, and then also conversion to drive online revenue as well. But yeah, from a channel perspective, like if we take TikTok, for example, we don't use TikTok for any conversion ads at all. It's purely just brand awareness and to drive that for consumers that are using the platform. It goes really well with our audience targeting, so it's a no-brainer for us. And then we sort of did a lot over the last few years around diversifying which channels we use. So not just using meta channels, but also spreading our wings a little bit and trying display and YouTube and TikTok. And there's just so many different consumers on these channels. And, last year there was a great stat that we had a piece of creative that ran on YouTube and TikTok, or we had a few different pieces, and the most successful on YouTube was the lowest performer on TikTok, and vice versa. So the consumers are just completely different. They're different age demographics. They're looking for different things, but we want to capture all of them and get them all engaged with our brand as much as possible. And we feel like that helps drive them into store to try.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that fascinating how on one channel, a specific ad or strategy can do so well, but then it's the lowest performance on another channel. I find that mind-blowing because it just goes to show how consumers really are everywhere, and you can never underestimate one or prioritize one over the other.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the need for something like this, like having not just putting all your eggs in one basket. Well, you could do that if you knew exactly what sort of consumer you wanted to do. But for us, kombucha target demographic is pretty much anyone looking for a healthier drink. Pretty much anyone looking for a healthier alternative in the drinks category, in the drinks aisle. So we don't really discriminate men or women, age, whatever it may be. So to see those numbers sort of fluctuate between platforms is definitely not a bad thing for us.
Has there been a favorite campaign or favorite ad strategy?
For me personally?
Yeah, that you've just gone, this is, or anyone that's surprising that you thought was going to work really well and doesn't, or vice versa?
I don't have a favorite. I would say the content team at Remedy, which is a team of 1/2, do a great job of producing. As I said before, they really stay true to our brand values and what we're trying to do. So I find the content quite humorous, that we don't try and take ourselves too seriously, and that shines through in the creative. But the videos that are running now, for instance, on YouTube, they're just very funny videos about like awkward moments where there's a remedy for that. And that's our tagline for the year. That's that's what we're rolling with. So, if something awkward happens, there's always a remedy for that. And that's how we feel about our brand. We have such different drinks now. We're more than just a kombucha brand. So, for every occasion, we feel like there's a remedy for that.
I love that. There's so many ways in which that can go, so many directions. Like, totally. I've got to go check out some of those ads because I think that would be a good giggle.
Definitely, definitely.
We've got a question from Jess that's come up. Absolutely love being able to see the digital journey that you have been on with Remedy for the last 4.5 years, Tom. Time flies, which it does. What has been one of your proudest achievements throughout your time with Remedy? Great question.
Very good question. This would be up there, this being the Shopify migration, because you have to go on. The business is bigger than it's ever been for online, and we're still trying to run that business and make money while also making sure we have this seamless migration. So that would be one of them. But I think it would have to be navigating our way through the pandemic. No question. It's just the amount of hurdles that you have to overcome when you have a lean team in particular to enable that business keeps chugging along and things keep going and people's drinks keep getting delivered. That time was really, really challenging, I think, for everyone, not just, I don't think I'm certainly not the only one who had a challenging time during that time, but, the increased volume in customer service inquiries, Australia Post having issues at their DCs, all that sort of stuff, which just threw so many spanners in the works, and combine that with things that were happening in the economy and things flattening a lot for a lot of people doing it tough. So, I think everything that Remedy and, our online business as a whole did during that time was fantastic. And it's something I'm really proud of.
You would have also had to have found ways to get creative, especially when you've got a lot of circumstances which you can't control.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that would have been hard.
We had one of our big things that our marketing team does is we do a lot of sampling to get cans in hands, people drinking our drinks. And obviously with no one out on the streets or going to any events or anything, we found it challenging to do that. So we actually pivoted to do a lot of that online. So we did,
Mm.
people could nominate a friend doing it tough in Melbourne, and we'd send them some free booch, or they might be a friend of theirs that they just feel like would like the drink. So we'd send them, a case or something like that. So we ran a lot of campaigns like that digitally rather than getting cans in hands out on the street. And obviously for our business, it was great from a digital standpoint. And as I said, a lot of people were doing it tough at that time. So it was a nice little surprise and delight. We used geo-targeting as well to, like, when Sydney was in lockdown, Melbourne was in lockdown, to try and target those areas to get those consumers. Some drinks and maybe a smile on their face.
Do you still use some of those strategies even today?
Online
in terms
sampling?
of geo-targeting or even online sampling? Yeah.
Yeah, we do a little bit, definitely not as much as what we did then, because it was so specific. The need for it was a lot more back then, but we still do a little bit now, definitely not as much. We often do, like, recently we've done, like, workplaces can register to get some drinks delivered to their workplace. So we'll target a certain area or whatever it may be. But certainly the team is still out targeting key areas to give out the drinks. But digitally, definitely we don't use it as much as what we had to, but it was more out of necessity at the time than anything else.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Final topic for the day, and team, if you're online, make sure that you are asking more questions, because we'll probably wrap this up in 5-10 minutes or so. But for a lot of fashion retailers, we're going into peak season period. Now, obviously for you, that's not over the next couple of months. That's more December, January, holiday season, Christmas time, Easter, whatever it might be. What are some of, I'd love to kind of dive deeper into some of the ways in which you prepare for your peak, because I think it'll provide some really great either similarities or differences in how a typical fashion retailer would think about preparing for peak in the upcoming months.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Our summer periods are definitely our key selling periods, particularly more so in the trade rather than online. So cafes, 7-Elevens, all that sort of stuff, that they churn through a lot of the chilled drinks during those months. So we really load up on our media spend during that 6-month period. It's almost like while the sun's out, we've got to maximize as much as we can. That's not to say we don't participate in peak events. So we do a lot. November is still our biggest month of the year, but it also is quite a warm month. So we're sort of leveraging both there, but certainly we do maximize it. So as much as we can, we load our media budget into those warmer months. Those 6 months are where most of it goes. I guess we partake in what we can. And then on top of that, when we know people might be buying drinks for certain occasions, you mentioned they're going on holiday. So leading up to, rather than during those times, so during Easter, let's use Easter as an example, it's still a warm time of year. Rather than during Easter, we'll start sending comms 2 weeks before, so people make sure they've got it to put in their caravan or whatever it may be prior to going away. And then we sort of lean into events. There is a World Kombucha Day, believe it or not, in February, which we try to maximize as much as possible. It's February, hottest month of the year. World Kombucha Day is in February. So those sort of events we conveniently have at our disposal in the warmer months as well. But I think it's just about, I don't want to harp on this again, but planning as much as possible. And we just plan for that period as much as we can. We've already started planning for October, November, etc. now, because we know that it's just going to be a huge period. A lot of our NPD is coming out in that time as well. So just working out how we're going to maximize that whilst also making sure that all of our drinks get the love they need.
Yeah, I love that. World Kombucha Day. Who knew?
I have no idea who made it up. Yeah. I don't know who invented it. I'm going to have to
get myself, put that in my diary, get myself a kombucha and celebrate it. Why not?
I think it came out of the US, but we've definitely jumped on board with it. So 21st of Feb.
Yeah, okay, 21st of Feb. Put that in the diaries, people. Love that. Last question from me to kind of go full 360. What is the most popular flavor or popular drink that you currently have in your category?
It is definitely either ginger lemon or raspberry lemonade kombucha. They're still number one, number two. But for us online, ginger lemon is the best single flavor SKU, but our mixed cases are where it's at. That's where we do a lot of our volume is in those mixed cases because people are buying 24. They want to have the variety. So all of the mixed cases are always the best sellers. But ginger lemon, so your fave is also everyone else's. It's been a mainstay for the whole time. So yes, very popular still.
I love it. Well, look, Tom, I think that can wrap up our Friday Overdose and Chill live session. We've covered a lot of ground. We've spoken a lot about your journey through digitization of your business, migrating to Shopify, touched on digital strategies and campaign strategies, and your journey into loyalty and SMS and email and all of that. So we've definitely spoken about a lot. Thank you so much. Your insights have been, I'm sure, incredibly valuable for everyone listening and for everyone who will listen later on down the track. Team, please make sure you add Tom on LinkedIn, and I'm sure I'm hopefully not going to open the floodgates here, but reach out if you have any additional questions. But thank you, Tom. Thank you for joining us this Friday, and yeah, I can't wait to celebrate Kombucha Day, with my ice cold ginger and lemon booch.
Thank you very much for having me, Hannah. Have a good weekend.
No worries. See you, team.